Welcome in the Quest Number 9 podcast. My name is Seth Warner, and on this podcast, we talk about Kentucky basketball from fans' perspective. And on this episode, we're going to be previewing Kentucky versus Purdue, Kentucky's first real game outside of we played the blue-white game. We've had Big Blue Madness. We're starting to get into the season, and Kentucky has their first big matchup. It's an exhibition, but it's number 1 versus number 9. It's a top 10 matchup. So Kentucky is going to have a big-time game this coming Friday against a very talented Purdue team with a lot of returning players, and has probably one of the best players in the country, probably the most experienced point guard coming into this, in Braden Smith, a guy that averaged almost 16 points and 8 assists a game, 8 assists, almost 9 assists a game, and was one of the best lead guards in the country. On the Kentucky side, Kentucky's down potentially 3 of their best players. Like we talked about in the past, Jaden Quaintance, he's out. Coach Pope kind of made it official, but everyone was expecting it. Jalen Lowe's out. It'll be interesting to see how much run they give Otega Owe. Double O coming off his turf toe. This really being his second big ramp-up period going into this big game for Kentucky, and just how Kentucky balances some of their injuries and being able to win this game, just seeing how Kentucky really coaches balancing as a team that's dealt with a lot of injuries and is still trying to ramp up for this upcoming season. Coach Pope did a pregame interview today kind of previewing the game, and I thought it was very interesting just some of the things he was talking about. He talked about the balance of previewing and prepping for this game and still trying to improve on some of the things they're trying to do. He talked about how the scouting report is going to work. It's not going to be a full-fledged scouting report on Purdue. It's just going to be more a scouting report on things that they think Kentucky needs to work on and improve going into this season as Kentucky ramps up the next week and a half, 2 weeks going into this start of the season. With this Purdue team, I bet a lot of people are familiar with Braden Smith and a couple other guys on this team after they made a big Sweet 16 run last year. It was Sweet 16 run last year, and I wasn't super familiar before researching for this episode, but a couple interesting notes as we go into this game. Another guy that could be a preseason All-American for this Purdue team, Trey Jackson-Wren, the 6'9", 240-pound forward who was their best scorer last year, averaging 20.6 boards and 2 assists, and was top 15 in the country in field goal percentage, shooting almost 60% from the field, leading the team last year in rebounds and points, and a guy that this Purdue team's really developed over the last couple of years, now going into his senior season. And this Purdue team has really grown in-house, having 2 potential All-Americans, maybe even potential first-team All-Americans, that both guys were internal, and this Purdue program just developed in this elite Purdue system that produces a lot of really good bigs and just a skilled and fluid offense. Fletcher Loyer, another name UK fans should be somewhat familiar with, especially if you watch NCAA tournament games. He was part of Zach Edey's team. Him and Braden Smith were the 1 and 2 guards for that team. Fletcher Loyer, a 6'5", 180 guard, can really shoot it, averaged almost 14 points last year. He's just a really knockdown shooter, wing, 2 guard who can just do a lot of different things on the floor and is a really good complementary player to these 2 other guys. Trey Jackson-Wren, who's really going to dominate interior-wise and be one of the better 4s and interior players in the country. And one of the other guys that's going to really help the upside, I think, on this team is a transfer for this Purdue team, Oscar Clough, a senior, 6'11", 255-pound center forward. He averaged almost 18 points last year. He started his career at Washington State, then moved to South Dakota State, each for 1 season. He'll be a junior this year. averaged almost 18 points, like I said, and was a really, really efficient from the field, shooting 63%, and was in the top 10 of the country for field goal percentage. It's a guy that's just really physical and averaged 12 rebounds a game and was really able to dominate the interior in a lower level competition at South Dakota State, but was still one of the premier rebounders in the country and overall offensive players with his legit size. And just think about this. On the UK website for Jaden Quaintance, they have him listed at the same height. They have him a half inch shorter and at the same weight as Oscar Clough. So that's a guy that Kentucky's not going to have going into this game, but I just thought that was very interesting. Just kind of the Kentucky equivalent. JQ's a much better athlete, but I just kind of thought those two builds were kind of interesting. And kind of on the Kentucky side, my kind of feel is Denzel Aberdeen will probably be taking over the point guard responsibilities. I think Jasper Johnson, as that combo guard, could be very complementary to this offense as a guy who can really shoot the ball, really space the floor. I think he could have a strong chance of starting. Noah will most likely start at the 2, and then you probably go take Owe, Modi Abate, and Brandon Garrison. I'll be interested to see as Ivan Yelovich starts to get his feet under him and assimilate to the American game, how that goes just with his skill and just his ability to shoot the ball against a high-paced Purdue team with the differences between the American and the European style, how quickly he translates. But I think he could be a guy that really is able to knock down the perimeter shot and be a mismatch for this Purdue team. Jalen Lowe's out for this game. Coach Pope gave good signs. No pain. It's the non-shooting shoulder, so that's always good. And a reporter asked him kind of what was the similarities or differences comparing him to Lamont Butler. He was just kept on talking about that the pain difference is a big deal because Lamont Butler was trying to play through the pain, where Jalen Lowe was more kind of like that discomfort and kind of that mobility. And he said there's also some structural differences between what these two guys were dealing with. Malachi Moreno is going to be another important guy for this Kentucky team with just our over interior depth against a good interior Purdue team who, when healthy, I think these are probably close to two of the top tier front courts in the country with Trey Jackson-Wren. Daniel Jacobson's another guy that is going to be very interesting. The 7'4" kid from Chicago, Illinois, is a sophomore this year. He got hurt all of last year, so played very little. Only 2 games last year, then got hurt, but a very large human being. It'll be interesting without Kentucky's depth, but I think these are two of the deeper and overall just bigger and really skilled front courts in the country. Omar Mayer, a 6'4", 215-pound guard from Israel. He's a freshman this year. He's a really kind of important player for this Purdue team. Coming into the year, he was expected to kind of be a multi-year player, developmental guy, really. But some of the reports coming in is he's really thrived in some of the early stuff that we've seen in training camp. He was supposed to be Braden Smith's kind of backup, but we'll interesting to see how that goes in this game and how their rotation looks for both teams. Both teams are deep at most positions, and we'll be interested to see. Also, I was talking about Daniel Jacobson. I was listening to Jack Pilgrim of KSR, and he was talking about Daniel played Malachi Moreno in the U19 training camp, and those two were very similar skill level and talent-wise, and were very much head-to-head and very kind of close together. Malachi, in his opinion, was better. Be interesting to see because we know Malachi is going to have to play with the lack of depth a little bit at the front court position and some guys maybe having to swing up a little bit to help fill that void that Jalen Lowe is going to leave, not being able to play in this game. Yeah, I was talking about Jasper Johnson as a guy that I feel like could potentially start in this game in particular. We'll see what Jasper's season will really look like. He'll make 2 threes, then give up a couple buckets on defense. I think he'll be very up and down at times in this game. That's going to be a reflection of what his season is going to be like and just the overall I feel I get from him. Brandon Ramsey talks about it a lot. His shot difficulty in high school was really high. As talented and athletic as he is, he should be able to create more space against high school players. And I think that, and he had some up and down things in high school. I think that's going to translate a little bit more to that college game and have some similar feel to that. But I'll be interested to also see how his playmaking goes. Without Jalen Lowe on the floor, we don't have a true playmaker guy who can create for others, get others involved. I think he's going to have to take over some of those responsibilities. It's going to be a by committee with him, Denzel Aberdeen, Colin Chandler, and just everybody having to chip in with the ball handling. But I think he's going to probably have the guy that's the most like explosiveness to him and can just create off the dribble. And he showed some playmaking feel in high school as a good playmaker, but it'll be interesting to see how some of that translates. But overall, I don't love the Kentucky matchup with lack of depth on the interior and kind of on the perimeter. I actually like the matchup better because most likely we're going to be playing Denzel Aberdeen on Braden Smith instead of Jalen Lowe. I like that matchup better. I'll be interested to see how Cam Williams does as a guy that's young. It's a bigger level, step up in competition from Tulane, and just he has the frame, the athleticism. And could he be a guy that comes in and knocks down 3 or 4 threes in a game and shows off some good defense and attacks closeouts? I think that's what we need from him to really expand his ceiling and Kentucky's ceiling without some of Kentucky's big pieces. But we'll see what ends up happening with some of these guys as Kentucky is trying to fill in the blank spots. One other interesting tidbit I got from some of my research, they were talking about John Calipari. He talked about with their exhibitions, Kansas, Bill Self was talking about how last year with their exhibitions against Arkansas and stuff, when they lost, he felt like they didn't start off on a good foot. They got beat pretty bad in that game and kind of weren't ready to play. And he felt like that carried on into their season. And I feel like that's going to be a big responsibility for Kentucky as several teams in the last couple of years of these became more popular. Teams who've lost have kind of started out slow. That's all from the Quest Number 9 podcast. My name is Seth Warner. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. And you can find me at Quest Number 9 on Instagram and Twitter. I do posts on there for new episodes if you want to stay up to date to new content and all things Kentucky basketball. And stay tuned for my new episodes. I'm going to be doing a reaction on Friday after the game, probably 10 or 15 minutes after, and then I'll be doing another episode soon after I really sit down and look at the game and get my full opinion, the outcome, and I'll see you next time.